Between the words that are spoken and the words that are heard, may the Spirit of God be present. Amen. Let me take you back just for a moment to November, even early December, when most leaves had fallen onto the ground, while a few were still hanging on the trees, beautiful golden brown vestiges of a glorious summer. In his beautiful book, The Testimony of Taliesin Jones, first published in 1996, and of which some of you may have seen the film adaptation, Revd Brooke writes the following, putting himself in the shoes, so to speak, of the leaves. There is a crisp wind up now, and it whispers to the leaves to drop, and they say, "No, not just yet. Let us stay golden for a few more days. Then at least you can make a noise rustling through us. After all, without us, you are silent. We are your instruments." This way, they bargain with their lives. When and where have you witnessed God in your life? Did you feel a particular presence, soothing, comforting, liberating, life-giving, loving? Did you experience something that you believe was a miracle, something considered impossible made possible? An answer to a prayer no one else could have been aware of? Was it something you saw or heard, or something you felt within? Was it an extraordinary, unique moment or encounter whose memory has remained with you ever since? Or do you perceive the divine somewhat regularly, perhaps a sense of wonder at the beauty of the creation? Very powerful experiences of the divine are notoriously rare, and many of us would probably be reluctant to share them. Did this really happen, we wonder? Is there a psychological reason or a scientific way of explaining this? We ask. And some of us may feel left out, having no recollection of such experience. Holy mothers and fathers throughout the ages have invited us to pay attention to the divine in our midst, encouraging us to realize that God is not a remote figure far beyond the skies, but the very substance of what and who is around us. We are all made of God's substance and breath of life, and all of us may occasionally reveal or be co-participants in the divine nature of God. Not too much unlike the leaves, which Revd Brooke talks about, we are meant to be instruments through which the still small voice of God becomes audible, and God's grace becomes visible, even tangible. Saint Teresa of Avila taught us that God had no feet on earth but ours, nor hands, nor eyes, but ours, that we are called to fully embrace our belief in a God made flesh and be practical followers of Jesus, not mere spectators, gathering around and cheering on a powerful leader. A few weeks ago, on the 29th of December, an article in the New York Times read, "Why we fall for narcissistic leaders, starting in grade school." I could not access the article back then, but several examples immediately came to mind, often stemming from a deep insecurity, resulting in an inflated ego to compensate for it, Narcissists are not only seeking positive feedback, they wish to be adored, if not worshipped, and genuinely suffer when they are not the center of the attention. I admit having compassion for that suffering, but what I have found particularly difficult to deal with over the years were the chaos, disorientation, confusion, and manipulation, often by triangulation, that these personalities would create or resort to in order for them to gain as much control as possible. Of course, the article was published at a time when, on a global scale, we feel the impact of such leaders in various ways. I will spare you the reference to particular individuals. You know who they are. And perhaps just like you, I hope to find at church some respite from this reality, not to forget it, but to be given a chance to breathe, pause, and look at it from a different perspective. I could later access the article, and what interested me in particular was that the author, Adam Grant, particularly focused on why we collectively seem to fall for narcissists. That is, how we make it possible for them to access positions of leadership, either locally or internationally, and what we can do about it. Read the full article, of course, to get Grant's full reasoning on the matter. In short, and as you would expect, in times of chaos, when we feel lost and confused, we are tempted to turn to the strong, often male, often white, often straight, often tall person who displays a lot of confidence and tells everyone they will sort it out with an easy, clear solution. In these times of anxiety and confusion, when we receive mixed, inconsistent messages, we are less likely to have the patience, calm, and wisdom to turn instead to the ones who approach situations with nuance, appreciate complexity, and seek the expertise of many, thus allowing for a slower and thoughtful process rather than a quick fix. This is where I think Christians have the potential of being most helpful, both on personal and collective levels. If I dare calling myself a Christian, it is only to the extent that I see myself on a path leading me to become a better version of myself, by the grace of God, by following the one whom I regard as the only ideal and perfect leader, Jesus, the Anointed, the Son of God. Among the few reasons that led me to join that path in the first place was the realization that while I thought that Christians were infantilized, expected to remain children obeying a strong parental figure, true Christianity, which is necessarily liberating, was about empowering people to grow into fully responsible actors wherever they lived, embodying the love that Christ had taught them. As C.S. Lewis famously wrote, "I didn't go to religion to make me happy. I always knew a bottle of port would do that. If you want a religion to make you feel really comfortable, I certainly don't recommend Christianity." Of course, you can replace port with anything that works for you, but you get the gist. And that Christianity was not meant to make us feel comfortable, but challenged, and to challenge injustices in society was a wake-up call for me. "Here is the Lamb of God," says John the Baptist. The Lamb of God, not the strong, narcissistic leader who promises to deal with every problem on our behalf and be seated on a throne. The God we worship takes the humble form of a child who, as he grows up, constantly reminds us that we have the power to change the world, that we are the instruments of God's grace, that we are able, with our own eyes, to witness that power at work in the world and through each other. that we are able to embody that grace and be co-participants in the liberating power of God. It is a liberating power which frees us from those who create chaos, because it teaches us to rely fully on the being at the core of our faith. And that being and his love free us from all fears, including racism, homophobia, transphobia, misogyny, xenophobia, and all forms of fears and discriminations which divide us from each other. This is the week of prayer for Christian unity. And as such, it is a fabulous occasion to focus our attention on who is at the center of our faith, who is the same regardless of our denominations, and binds the soul and makes us stronger. And so I pray that we as Christians may be agents of God's grace and offer an example of what true leadership looks like. Christian leadership is paradoxical and puzzles many. Yet it is most apt to profoundly transform societies by building relationships not on competition, not on destruction, not on divisions, not on exclusion, but on unity and love. Gracious God, make a joyful and liberating noise rustling through us. Amen.